नमस्ते। एम आई ऑडिबल? मेरी आवाज़ सुनाई दे रही है? उदयवाल जी नमस्ते। कैन यू हियर मी क्लियरली? नमस्ते, कैन यू हियर मी क्लियरली, उदयवाल जी? Great. So let's start this session 10 of English translation of Jeevan Vidya Ek Parichay, which we call it Jeevan Vidya an Introduction by Shri A. Nagraj. So first of all, I wish to be offering my deep gratitude towards Babaji, whose work we are studying here. Uh, Prior to this, the sessions were conducted apart from me, Ajay Jain Bhaiya, Pradeep Raman Charla Bhaiya, and Sanjeev Chopra Bhaiya. So, as such, the main part of the book has been completed. What we are going to start is the questions and answers sessions. So, as you know, that this book was is essentially a transcript of a workshop that Babaji had conducted at Avri way back in 1997. Uh, and it was basically facilitated by Rajan Maharaj, who, who is from Abhyuday Sansthan, near that place. And he had actually organized this workshop, and these questions and answers were largely were asked by him. And as we see in those recordings as well, this have been done very well, and have been asked very pointed questions, and those answers also are very insightful and helped us in understanding the content of darshan. So we will start with the reading. Earlier my approach was that I would go on reading, would add some explanation, but as I saw other people doing it, Sanjeev Bhaiya, Pradeep Bhaiya, and others, they basically read one paragraph and then added some explanation. I think that approach might actually be a better one. So let's give that approach a try this time. Okay, so I will start now. Okay, so questions and answers. So this part of the book has a selection of some questions asked by students of Jeevan Vidya and their answers given by Babaji. So first question, question one: do material things have no value? So it's the question is being asked is that the material things that we see around us, are they do they have any value or not? Is there any mulya or value in it or not? So the answer is the usefulness value of material things is definite. Usefulness value is upyogita mulya. The usefulness value of material things is definite. For example, the usefulness value of 1 kilogram of wheat today is the same as what it was 100 years back. Human interference only reduced the value of wheat, for example, by use of chemical fertilizers. Use of chemical fertilizers made people lazy as well, as they stopped making manure from the cow dung and started killing the animals for their meat. I hear they kill animals and export their meats to foreign countries for money. Is that true? How far would this be beneficial for humankind? Who is answerable? Human being needs to know the value of material things to realize prosperity. which is the result of human labor. The material things have three avenues of use: bodily nourishment, that is food, physical protection, that is housing, clothing, etc., and social progress, that is samaj gati. Material wealth are meant for our use. Without these, human happiness cannot be fully realized. So basically, the question that is being asked over here is that, is dealing with the material things is spiritual, or is it something which is not spiritual? So here it is being said this, that material things have value and they are needed and they are meant for use, and human being is supposed to use, and their value is their usefulness value. Okay, and their usefulness value is evaluated by a human being. So human being evaluates the usefulness of material things, and it he makes, or they make their use in bodily nourishment, physical protection, and social progress. So that is where the usefulness of these material things is realized. Okay. Next question is asked is, what is dharma and what is faith? So here there is a the question is being asked is that is there a distinction between dharma and faith? Hmm? And what is that? What are both these things? So let's see what the answer is. Answer is, the dharma of all human beings is happiness. Since this has remained obscure or inaccessible, there are many faiths for it. So you see that. So there are many faiths because the dharma is inaccessible. The dharma has been obscure or inaccessible, or is not there as part of the education. It's not there as part of the constitution. It is not there something that we can study and understand. So therefore there are many faiths that are there. Okay, so that many faiths, like for example Hindu faith, Muslim faith, etc., they are they are the different faiths are there. So these faiths are there because dharma is not understood. Okay, so that is what is being claimed over here. The extent of orderliness and well-being with which I live today, I could live even better tomorrow. This progressiveness for happier living in human being itself is their dharma. So this is something that we are brought face to face with what dharma is, and something that we can verify in ourselves, that we have, each human being has uh, the sense of hope that tomorrow is going to be better, like that there is hope that tomorrow I will find some happiness. So this is the hope that basically keeps the human being alive. Like this is something that is more, which basically defines the human being, makes the human being distinct from animals, that they have the hope for happiness. They have the hope that tomorrow is going to be better. This is something that each of us can verify among ourselves, and this is something that is the defining trait of human being, and that itself is being positioned as the dharma of human being. So I'll read this line again because it is important. The extent of orderliness and well-being with which I live today, I could live even better tomorrow. This progressiveness for happier living in human being itself is their dharma. It is not possible to be happy with problems. It is only when one has become enriched with resolution from right understanding that one could be happy. It is not possible for the human being to grow resolution on the basis of material things and then become happy. Resolution and right understanding becomes innate in buddhi by way of awakening. It is only on the basis of the right understanding that one becomes capable of producing and using the material things righteously. If we are resolved, then it would be impossible for us to be deprived of material things. So again here the attention is being drawn that it's not that the material things will not be there if we are resolved. So he's saying that if we are resolved, then it would be impossible for us to be deprived of material things. Resolution includes definite measure of material things in the sense of prosperity in family. So one who is resolved is going to be resolved about how to live in the family. And the right way of living with the family is living with prosperity, where one has a definite assessment of how much one requires for their for fulfilling the needs of the family, and making the uh, arrangements for that by making the hard work for that, putting the human labor for that, and by on the nature, and thereby producing the material wealth which is necessary for prosperity. So material things in this way are actually considered as the needs of human being, which something that the human being needs to rightfully do the production of, and then have the ownership of as well. So I'll just read this line again, that resolution includes definite measure of material things in the sense of prosperity in family. It is with this balance that we pave the way for living with happiness. These needs for living with happiness themselves are called as the religious needs. So again, that material things that one needs for living in the family are being called in Madhyas Darshan as the religious needs or the needs of dharma. Then the next paragraph actually brings the attention towards what the faiths have. So faiths have the aspect of rituals. So here the paragraph begins with, sectarian rituals could not become universal until now, nor would they ever become universal in future. Right? So faith actually results in a sect, and each sect has a certain set of rituals. So here it is being said is that sectarian rituals could not become universal until now, nor would they become universal in future. Universality will only be of orderly living of human being, which has happiness and well-being of all. The orderliness, that is definite conduct of human being, and their participation in the universal orderliness, is something that I understood. No one has any difficulty with my living. In this way, we reach this conclusion that human beings' dharma is happiness with resolution. As a result of orderly living, there is continuity in my resolution and happiness. It is Jeevan that becomes fulfilled, which becomes evident in the form of resolution in human beings' behavior. It is only because of evidence of resolution in a human being's behavior that we can accept of their being happy. So you see that Jivan achieves happiness and human being has resolution. So these two things are parallel. Right? So human being is recognized as a combined expression of Jivan and body. So as Jivan has happiness, the human being has resolution in their living, right? So evidence actually happens of in the form of resolution. Okay, the evidence of happiness is in the form of resolution. Okay, or having the answers or having the solution for all situations. Every human being naturally expects to become happy, whether they are white or black, mighty or weak, rich or poor. There are no two ways in it. So, this is something that basically again asserts that this is the common denominator, which is something which is common across all human beings. That is why it is called as the dharma of human being. Human being has been seeking happiness in bodily sensations ever since antiquity, but they did not become successful by that approach. As a result, now it has become clear that one becomes happy based on the right understanding. Right understanding or samaj is in human beings achieving the understanding of self and existence. We'll move ahead. Existence is an eternal truth which neither increases nor decreases. What is the evidence of this? All that is there in front of us is present forever. The presence of existence never ceases, it continues to be. Whether an earth has all four orders or only one, At the minimum, one order continues to remain. Physical matter continues to exist. It doesn't ever get annihilated. The physical matter itself emerges in the chemical form, which is called as chemical ripples or rasayanic urmi. The coming together of two kinds of substances, leaving their prior conducts and exhibiting a third kind of conduct, which is called chemical ripple. The chemical ripples alone have resulted in all kinds of biological order units. It is from these chemical substances that Pran Kosha, that is biological cells, Pran Sutra, which is DNA on RNA, I think, and Rachna Vidhi, which is genetic code, is what I believe it is, emerge on their own. It is not a doing of any engineer, doctor, or some clever person. There is no human contribution in the nature's emergence. This illustrates the presence of definite stages of development progression in existence. Human being is also a stage in this progression, which is something that we can understand. If human beings do not work, think, or live according to the orderliness of their stage of emergence, then this earth would not remain livable for them, and it will result in their annihilation. The other things, the physical and chemical substances, will continue to exist as before, but human race will vanish from the surface of the earth. There is no loss or gain in existence. That is, existence neither increases nor decreases. The four orders of existence always continue to be there. This is the way existence is. If not on this earth, the all four orders can be there on some other planet. What could be more foolish if the human being thinks that their progress is in making this earth unlivable? Most people believe that the one who causes bigger nuisance is more developed. Yeah? As we can see, that the more developed country is that who basically exploits the nature more, does the more wars, and so on and so forth. Right? So, and those who are in the process of becoming there, they are called the developing countries. And those who are in the exploited lot, they are called actually undeveloped countries. So this is how we are actually defining development in ourselves. But while the development, the way that Babaji is actually defined, that something that actually has stability and continuity can be called as a developed state, right? So, for example, Jeevan is called developed because Jeevan has the stability which the material nature does not have, right? In the same way, family as an order is called developed state, while an individual is actually a state prior to that, right? So in this sense, basically a stability and permanence is something that defines the development. Most people believe that the one who causes bigger nuisance is more developed. This is also something about which we need to rethink. It has now become amply clear that we have become stuck in the net of our own making. We need to untangle ourselves now. The proposal for liberation has been presented before you, and it requires your collaboration. Right? So here he is saying that basically the human being has become stuck in a net of their own making. Right? They have made their own net in which we have become stuck. So we now need to untangle ourselves from this net. Now this Madhyas Darshan, he calls it as the proposal for liberation. It has been presented before you, but it's not enough for him to just present it. It requires our collaboration, right? It requires our collaboration by studying it, by practicing it, right? Its success depends on your collaboration. So another thing that he says, that its success is not just in here his having got the revelation of it or realization in it. He says its success depends on our collaboration, right? So success of a discovery or success of his anusandhan is actually in our accepting it, and our collaborating it, in our studying it, and our bringing it into the practice. So human beings spontaneously turns to the good or the bad based on what they can see, right? So this is another thing that says that one turns to the good or the bad based on what we are able to see. If one can't see the path to the good, then one turns to the bad. This proposal is for the good, which needs to be examined. Its path needs to be recognized, right? So this is something that has been said here. Now, so first, the humane morals are universal, or the morality of humanness is universal. These are same for all human beings. Humane morals or morality of humanness is in the form of righteous wealth, that is swadhan, righteous conjugality, that is swanari swapurush, and kindness in work and behavior, that is dayapun karya. So it is being said is that we talk of that morality. How do we define that what is right and wrong at the level of society, right? So at the level of who will determine what is right and what is wrong at the level of society, it has been a question. And many a people actually feel that this any of the restrictions or something that are there from outside are actually enforced, right? They are actually restrict the freedom. So here it is being said is that universal morality, okay, universal morality, which is means that what is right and what is wrong at the level of social behavior for humane living is universal, and this is identified as in the form of righteous wealth, that is swadhan, righteous conjugality, that is swanari swapurush, and kindness in work and behavior. We can also examine the validity of this claim by saying, by actually doing a thought experiment, that what would happen at the level of society in a situation when people are actually encroaching on the limits of what of swadhan or righteous wealth. If they are encroaching on the wealth of other people, then definitely it is going to be a crime, right? It is going to be encroachment, it is going to be interference, it is going to be disorder. In the same way, if suppose there is a uh, interference in terms of in the family, in terms of somebody trying to encroach the marital relationship between a husband or the wife, you cannot actually have an order in the society. So it is a matter of morality. One cannot think of the right morality of humanness without swanari and swapurush, that is the righteous conjugality, that is marital sanctity of the marital relationship. And then finally, it is the morality of humanness cannot be unless there is a discipline in terms of letting other person live, right? Which is actually called the kindness in work and behavior. So if we actually let other person live, we are actually creating the space for a society to actually have order. Okay, in the absence of having this uh, acceptance of kindness in one's behavior, there is going to be disorder, right? So at the level of society comes the question of morality. Okay, and this morality, what is the natural morality of the human being, is what has been described over here. Second, the values flow from recognizing the relationship. So this is another thing that basically describes that, okay, are there certain values of human being which are universal? Okay, and how do we identify, how do we what are those values? So he says that when a relationship is recognized, the values flow. The values are realized upon recognition, evaluation, and mutual fulfillment in relationships. So what actually has been done in this is to actually see what are the natural values in the human being, what are the values, what are the relationships that are there, and uh, and enumerate those values that what are there. So here he actually has evaluated has identified seven relationships of a human being, and in those, as one identifies the other person with that relationship, one sees the surge of flow of values. And those are the 9 values or the established values that have been identified. So those values are something which are universal. It's not something that is Indian values or Pakistani values or British values or American values. Those are the values which are there in the human being, which are established by the very fact of their being a human being, right? So this is another thing that has been defined over here. Third, it says that we are ethical, that is natikta. We are ethical only when we ensure the good use and protection of our resources as body, mind, and wealth. That is dhan, man, and dhan. So again, so this is something that what does a nation actually mean? So this ethics comes at the level of a nation. So nation, what does a right, what does a good what how would a good nation actually be? A good nation would be that makes a good use of its resources. And what are the resources? That is the body, mind, and wealth. If we are making a good use and protection of our resources, then the nation is doing its function. So the human being's conduct, therefore, is actually identified at 3 levels. Okay, first at the level of family, second at the level of society, and the third at the level of nation. At the level of family, we call it the human being's conduct is called values. Okay, so there the relations between the person to person relationship is there where the values are identified. And the second where the conduct is identified is at the level of society, where we call it morality, okay, or charitra, where the we see that the order in the at the level of society would be in the form of swadhan, swanari, swapurush, and dayapurn karya vyavhar. And the third level is at the level of nation, right? So nation is, it's not that the nation like nation of India, nation of Bangladesh, nation of British nation, and so on. This is not defined nation in terms of the boundaries. He says that whole earth is actually identified as one nation, right? So the proposal of Madhyas Darshan is actually gives a vision of the all the human beings on this earth identifying themselves as the citizens of this earth and identifying this earth as one nation. Okay, so with this identification of earth as one nation, it basically proposes a 10 staged orderliness. Okay, so that is where basically the proposition of ethics is makes sense. Okay, so where the good use and protection of resources of body, mind, and wealth. So the proposition of orderliness that he is actually making is at the seeing the earth as one nation. And the society, when he says morality, when he talks about society and morality, there again he is talking of society not as a Hindu society, Jain society, Buddhist society, etc. Is saying that all human beings together as one undivided society. That is how, what would be the morality of that society? Okay, so that is the morality of that society would be swadhan, swanari, swapurush, dayapun, kari vyavhar. And again, when it comes to identifying values, there it is identified the values of a human being. Okay, not as a black or a white human being or a yellow human being. So this is basically not based on their skin color, not based on their background, but actually human being, between human beings, what the values could be, what would be the universal values of human being. Okay, as human being, that is defined as combined expression of Jeevan and body. Neither body has any faith nor Jeevan is equal. Jeevan doesn't have any variety in it, right? And body is a physiochemical form. So in that sense, it's the reality of human being is Jeevan and body. And then when you look at it together, then you see that human beings conduct is defined at these 3 levels. First at the level of family, second at the level of society, and the third at the level of nation. At the level of family, it is called the values. At the level of society, it is called morality or charitra, and at the level of nation, it is called ethics. Just a minute. In this way, Humane conduct is a combined form of values, morals, and ethics. These three are the cornerstones for human beings' orderly living. Humane conduct is the formula, and when I elaborated it for human beings living in family, in society, in occupation, and in environment, it resulted in the form of humanistic constitution or Manviya Samvidhan. So so you see that he is actually goes on and says that okay, now I am able to describe what would be the constitution of this earth if a human being lives with understanding, with the right understanding. It's possible to actually write the constitution of this whole earth, of the people of this earth. So we have, I mean, all the constitutions have the we the people of this country and so on. He says that what would be the constitution of the earth when actually human beings are with right understanding? What will be their right and what will be their wrong? Okay, so this is what he says that when I went about describing human beings living in family, society, occupation, and environment, it resulted in the form of humanistic constitution. Humane conduct alone can be established in the form of national character. In the past, we humans have ideated about religious politics and economic politics, but those turned out to be failures. We now need to find their alternative. The alternative proposal is national character based on humane conduct. No one anywhere ever will have any difficulty in understanding it. The fulfillment from humane conduct needs to be experienced once. As we elaborate the constitution based on code of humane conduct, it takes the form of behavioral sociology or Vyavharvadi Samajshastra. So it says that as we actually elaborate the constitution, okay, how do we elaborate the constitution? We elaborate the constitution by practicing it in our behavior, and when we practice it in the behavior, the vision that emerges is, or the discipline that emerges is called the behavioral sociology or Vyavharvadi Samaj Shastra. So he says that education needs to incorporate behavioral sociology, which answers questions like how will human being become wise? What is the grandeur of human beings living with humanness? How does a human being live in a family, in society, and in the humanistic order? It is an entire thesis on sociology which requires to be studied separately. Human being can live very nicely while trusting in the ever presence of existence. Existence neither increases nor decreases, therefore, we can recognize existence as the highest truth. Nature saturated in the omnipotence itself is the existence. So he sees that existence or the being is something that basically he makes all his presentation. All his presentation is based on existence, which is the way the reality is. So one thing that basically a fundamental thing that he recognizes about existence is that the existence is actually stable. It doesn't have any increase or decrease. It is going to be there always, right? So it is something that is constant, that has actually, it doesn't mean that it is static. It is having emergence, it is having activity, it is having motion, but at the same time it is constant. It doesn't have any increase or decrease. So this is something that anything that actually is fundamentally the same and doesn't increase or decrease, one can actually identify the realities in that. And there he says that what is the basic fundamental reality of this existence? He says that nature, that is the units saturated in the omnipotence, that is satta, is existence, and these two are in the constant state of harmony, that is in constant state of presence, and there is a complete state of harmony between nature and the omnipotence. And what together between these, in this coexistence, you see existence has the state of emergence. It is evolving, it is actually reaching towards completeness. And this completeness actually first takes the form of constitutional completeness, which is expression of consciousness, and thereafter it is achieving of understanding, that is kriya purnta or activity completeness, and then finally in terms of is establishing of the order and as a continuity of the understanding, right? So that is called the conduct completeness or acharan purnta, right? So let's continue from here. The presence of existence is never going to be destroyed. We remain dissatisfied with the presence of existence because we cannot live in its order due to our limited understanding, right? So he says that we are not satisfied with the presence of existence because we cannot understand it. Okay, we cannot understand in this odd, we if we do not understand it, we actually try to escape the presence of the existence, we try to escape the presence of the existence. And how do we try to escape the presence of the existence? He says that we try escaping to the past or the future, but that only leads to our frustration and pain, right? So because we deny the presence, we don't understand the order of the presence, so we try to escape in the past and future is there in our memories, or this is the construct of our memory or in our imagination. We try to actually live in our imagination, live in the past or in the future, but that is not the present, and therefore it leads to frustration, right? Because we cannot actually see that in what is there in our imagination, tally it with the reality that is there in the present, right? So our understanding is not tuned with the present, so we try to escape it with the past and the present or the future, and that actually frustrated. So what he's saying is that uh, there is nothing called disorder in existence. Existence is orderliness in it itself. So he's basically saying, yes, look at this presence that is there right now, relate with it, resonate with it, and that is the right understanding, right? Once you resonate with the right understanding, have the right resonate with the presence of existence, you see that that is where one can actually live. The past and the future is no place for living, right? The place of living is in the present itself, or in the presence of existence, and presence has the continuity. Presence has the continuity. It doesn't ever increase or decrease. It has been there forever, exactly in the same way, and it is actually harmonious. It is harmonious and it is orderly. So one needs to learn in the presence of existence is the essential message of Madhyas Darshan. Anything a human being constructs, with time it disintegrates. For example, if one makes an instrument, it stops functioning after some time. If one makes a house, it goes into disrepair after some time. This disintegration of matter is not its annihilation. So now he's saying that our common observation is that whatever we make, after some time it goes down. It basically becomes in disrepair. It requires to be reconstructed. So how do we get assured about the permanence of existence, that nothing gets annihilated? So he is saying that if something, the disintegration of matter is not its annihilation, right? So something gets disintegrated, a material nature gets disintegrated, like a deer dies, right? Or the human being dies. It doesn't mean that the matter itself got annihilated, matter itself got evaporated. It doesn't mean that. We can always repair or reconstruct a rundown house by devoting our labor. Devan has inexhaustible forces and parts which we can use for producing things for our bodily nourishment, physical protection, and social progress, and thereby experience prosperity. So he says that uh, to be assured of existence, one needs to be clear, one needs to have a clear understanding that it is not possible to annihilate it, right? It's not possible to subsume the matter, right? Or to remove the matter, remove the existence of matter altogether, right? And also the presence of omnipotence or satta, that is unchangeable, that is a complete state, right? Which is called sthiti purn. So in this sthiti purn, or the complete state of omnipotence, there is there is nature that actually has is in the form of various activities, and these activities are in the state of uh, mutual complementariness, and there is an order in it, and this order is called the presence. Okay, so let's move on. He is actually talk about prosperity now. So we may require to go out once or twice a day, but we have the bicycle available for whole day. That's prosperity. Our family's requirement is one quintal rice, but our production is 20 quintals. That's prosperity. These examples illustrate resources are aplenty, our requirements are less. So this is this. If you look at it, the what we teach in our economics books, it is actually quite opposite to that. There we say that resources are less and our wants are more. So they talk that the whole of the economics is actually built on the scarcity principle, right? Or something which is called that the resources are scarce and not everybody can get all the things, so therefore there has to be struggle, and for managing that struggle itself is the all the economic order. So while the economic order that is being proposed in Madhyas Darshan is saying that actually the resources are aplenty and our needs are a few. How do our needs become few, or how do our needs become limited? Once we have the right understanding, then our needs become limited or definite. Limited doesn't mean less. Okay, it may be mean less in terms of versus when we compare it with the wasteful way of living. Okay, uh, when we compare it with the wasteful way of living, then we might say that with the awakened living, in the awakened living the needs are become actually less. But here the by becoming needs becoming limited, here the intent is to communicate that the needs become definite, right? It doesn't mean that the needs you have the indefinite needs, that you cannot say that how much I will need. So you are saying that yes, I have the need, and this is where this is what I need the material things for. So he says that okay, once you have the understanding, you will clearly say how much you will be needing for your food, how much you will need for your protection, okay, for housing and so on and so forth, and how much you need for your participation in society. So these are the three avenues in which the material wealth needs to be devoted. So once one identifies one's need, and the needs here it is being said is that human beings' needs can only be identified in a definite manner only when they are living in the family, or the family itself determines their needs. And once they determine their needs, they are actually able to then find the resources for fulfilling it. And here it is also being said the main resource for prosperity is the human labor itself, human ingenuity itself. So one has the ability to think, right? Tan man dhan, it is being said. One has the ingenuity to think and ideate, and one has the able body and the material resources to actually achieve what is needed for one's family's prosperity, right? And thereby live in the way that actually not lives in the scarcity but with the sense of giving, right? What is called as upkar vidhi se jina, right? Giving with the living with the sense of benefaction, that being doing good, making the tradition of actually living in an orderly way. Okay, so let's move further on this. It is possible for us to experience prosperity in all aspects of our living. Experiencing prosperity is a justified need of the human being. The material world is there so that the human being could experience the prosperity. There is only one way to experience prosperity, and that is to do production in excess of our family's need. So he's not saying that do the production only to meet your family's need. He's saying that do the production to in excess of your family's need. Okay, you would have the sense of abundance only when you have things which are not just exactly meeting your needs, but actually having a little more to actually have the required margin. So right understanding once attained, resolution once attained, has its continuity. One doesn't need to run pillar to post for getting resolution in every situation, in every new situation after attaining the right understanding. So here again it is being said is that right understanding, this one, once it gets established in the form of, in the state of buddhi, then resolution is something that basically one keeps producing it. As one comes to the new situation, the resolution for that situation actually comes, emanates from one's own self. Okay, so that is the thing that is being said, is that getting resolution in every situation, it's not that you need to actually go from pillar to post. How do I find solution for this situation? The solution for that situation emerges from one's own self once one is established in the right understanding. Right understanding itself is the basis of well being, while in the absence of right understanding, the very thought of problem disrupts our well being. Right? In this way, human beings' right understanding is the basis of their experiencing resolution, and their labor is the basis of their experiencing prosperity, and their orderly living is the basis of their experiencing fearlessness. Right, so here actually it is being said is that how the human goals that are being said is that resolution, prosperity, and fearlessness, what will be the basis for achieving that? So right understanding would become the basis of their achieving resolution. Then their shram, or the hard labor or the physical labor, that basically one is able to do by as their mind and body actually come together. So they would be able to actually experience prosperity by producing more than what their needs of their family are. And then one would actually get the fearlessness in the society by living in an orderly way, that we talked about morality just a while back. So what he says next is that this I have seen, understood, and lived, which I am capable of teaching you. Right. So this is another thing, that it's an assertion that I have seen it, I have understood it, and I have lived it, and I'm capable of teaching. So he's also having the confidence that I can actually express what I have understood as well. Right. Next, justice. Justice means being capable of living in undivided society and universal orderliness. Truth, that is being capable of authenticity. These are the two definitions that he is giving. Being authentic means our ability to make others understand what we have understood. Right? This is very important to definition, that what does a human being's authenticity mean? Human beings becomes the proof of the one's authenticity means that if I have understood something, then I'm able to impart that understanding to you, and you also are able to get the same results that I am getting. That is the proof that I have understood something, right? So this is where the authenticity gets proven. The essence of right understanding is to understand the orderliness, justice, and the human being. I am among those who have become successful in understanding these things. Right? So one is basically he's making a claim, and it is without any sense of vanity that one is making that assertion, that I am among those who have understood it. Right? So once in my conversations, when my dialogues with him, that I asked him, is it doesn't it become too heavy for you to actually make the claim that I have understood everything? Right? Is it something that is it too much of a burden on your head? He says it is not. He says that अनुभव जो है उसका कोई बोझा नहीं होता. Right? That is, the realization doesn't have any, is not a burden. It is something that it is the delusion that actually has the sense of burden on us. Once one has the realization in the truth, that actually makes you light. It doesn't make you burdened with the thing. So he says that when I'm saying that I have understood, I'm not saying with the sense of burden that I have to basically do something for the all the people, that I have so much obligation, or I have to save the world, and so on and so forth. He says that that is my basic nature now, and this is how I live. This is my swabhav, right? So I have understood it, and this is how I live it. Now my only way of living is by living with upkar. That is my only way of living. Is only thing that makes sense to me is what I have understood. I impart that understanding. So I don't, when I'm saying this, it is not with a sense of vanity or pride. It is the sense of a truth. It is a sense of the correct understanding, that yes, I have understood it, and this is what I would like to share with what the people I relate with, and I relate with everyone, right? So this is what basically was being said over here. So he says that authenticity is the result of realization. And what is realization? Realization is fulfillment itself. Hmm? If we only keep believing but we don't know, then there is no fulfillment. That is the only faith, or only in the believing on things, there is no fulfillment. Only once we know and we believe, then there is fulfillment, right? So I'll just read that line again. If we only keep believing but don't know, then there is no fulfillment. If we know but don't believe, then too there is no fulfillment. It is only it is when we become fulfilled in both knowing and believing that we get fulfillment in our living. That is in responding and recognizing. Thus far, we didn't find fulfillment in the course of our living because we lacked in the knowing and believing aspects. Right? So here he is basically saying that it is not enough for human being to know. One human being needs to believe in what they know also, and only when you know and believe in the reality, that you are able to live. That living actually he calls is pehchanna or nirvah karna, that is recognizing and responding. So there are four things that the human being basically he says is doing, that जानना, मानना, पहचानना, निर्वाह करना. That is knowing, believing, recognizing, and responding. Right? So he says that these janna and manna, that is knowing and believing, these are the things which basically are the essence of human beings understanding. Okay, so once the right understanding actually understands the addresses the aspects of knowing and believing. So once the knowing and believing aspects they get addressed, then the aspects of recognizing and responding, they are actually addressed automatically, right? They are the one, they are recognizing and responding aspects are how to actually implement what one has understood with use of sensitivity, right? So sensitivity, or how one deals with the how one controls the body using one's senses, right, is manifestation of what one knows and believes in. Okay, so this is how we look at it. Okay, so then he says that thus far we didn't find fulfillment in the course of our living because we lacked in the knowing and believing aspect. How do we find the point of fulfillment? Study results in revelation of reality in self, whereby one discovers the point of fulfillment along with authenticity. So here is an important line. Study, or the adhyan, this results in revelation of reality in self. Revelation means sakshatkar. Sakshatkar of reality in self, thereby whereby one discovers the point of fulfillment. Point of fulfillment, that is tripti bindu. One discovers the point of fulfillment along with authenticity. Authenticity is evidence in itself. In this way, we become capable of communicating and propagating realization in the human tradition. When I express my realization to you, I feel fulfilled, and that fulfillment becomes my own. So he says that when I express my realization to you, I feel fulfillment, and that fulfillment basically is my treasure, right? It is something that becomes my own. If you understood it from me, then it is further joy for me. Even if you didn't understand, then too my fulfillment remains with me as it is. Right? So he says that once I have achieved the realization, that results in my fulfillment. Now when I share my fulfillment with you, and you also understand, that actually gives me a confirmation of my fulfillment. But even if you do not understand, then too, whatever was my treasure, whatever was I understood, whatever fulfillment I had from it, that remains as it is. So he does. So this is what we actually observed in our behavior with Babaji, that he would not actually link his or be link his happiness or unhappiness with our state of not understanding, or our state of mind. He would actually be in a position to guide us or change our mind, or actually orient our mind or inspire our minds to what he was saying. But he would not be actually pulled down by our state of mind, which was actually ridden with problems and so on and so forth. So a person who is awakened, his thought level or his level of understanding actually remains at the level which is not affected. His sense of fulfillment is not actually hampered by another person's state of mind. Instead, that person is is in the state of consciousness, that he is able to guide, or he or she is able to guide the other person, inspire the other person, and actually by in the and this actually becomes very uh, in such a natural fashion, because it becomes with the flow of values itself, that all the values that we talked about, like mamta, vatsalya, Shraddha, Kritagyata, and Sneh, Vishwas, Samman. All these values actually is the knowledge actually gets transmitted, or knowledge gets a handed over from one person to the other on the top of the behavior, right? Once thoughts are transmitted to the other person through the medium of behavior, and in the behavior the values are there. So you see that the thoughts get communicated through behavior via values, right? So this is how the understanding is getting transmitted: understanding, thoughts, values, behavior, right? So behavior is the evident or the visible form of what the human being is doing, but behind the behavior lies the values, lie the thought, lies the understanding, right? So when a person with understanding behaves, then the understanding actually is getting articulated in thoughts, that thoughts is getting manifested in the form of behavior, behavior is in along with values, and that is how the other person basically is able to receive what the other person, what the person who is teaching is trying to give, right? Okay, so let's move from here. Okay, so this line, authenticity is evidence in itself. In this way, we become capable of communicating and propagating realization in the human tradition. When I express my realization to you, I feel fulfilled, and that fulfillment becomes my own. I think ये पढ़ लिया था. We had read this thing. Okay. Huh. So he says that we can always communicate our realization. The idealism is Adarshwad, thus far has kept asserting that the realization is incommunicable. While here I understood that realization is an integral activity of Jeevan, the evidencing of realization is possible only in the human tradition. Evidencing doesn't require any material substance. So this is another thing that basically is saying that evidencing or evidence of that one has understood something doesn't require any material substance. Right understanding is the only requirement for evidencing realization. The activities of knowing and believing happen in Jivan, which are not based on the sensations or the sensory experiences. So he says that activities of knowing and believing, that is the aspects of Sangyaniyata or the intelligence, these happen in Jeevan, and these are not related with the bodily sensation, sensory experience. Okay, these are expressed through sensory experience, but these are actually distinct from the bodily sensations, right? So that is another thing that is being asserted over here. Therefore, these don't require anything material, right? Something that is a totally conscious phenomena doesn't require anything material. The recognizing and responding activities are for living in the world with other human beings. Realization activity has no engagement of man. Realization in Atma directly results in joyousness of man. Right? So what one achieves the realization of, it actually results in full in its manifestation in the world, in the man. That is the the fourth orbit of Jivan. Realization in Atma directly results in joyousness of Man. Man, joys from the effect of realization, can't hold back this bliss and reveals it to the world. Right? What a beautiful line it is. That Man, when realization happens in Atma, that is when Anubhav happens in Atma, then its effect reaches the Man also. And then Man actually becomes so overjoyed with it that cannot hold back that whole joy to itself, but it wants to share it with the world, it wants to express it in the world. So that is how basically he says that once one achieves the realization, it has to come in one's behavior, it has to come in one's conduct, and it's coming in the form of conduct, uh, is itself in the form of values, morals and ethics, right? So ek bar once Babaji was saying that once you have understood, अगर तुम्हें समझ में आ गया है तो ये आचरण में ना आए ऐसा कोई बांध नहीं है. There is no barrier that is there in human being to stop oneself from having a humane conduct once one has achieved the right understanding. Okay, so the recognizing and responding activities are for living in the world with other human beings. Realization activity has no engagement of man, right? So clearly realization happens in Atma, so there is no engagement of man in that. Realization in Atma directly results in joyousness of man. Man joys from the effect of realization, can't hold back the bliss and reveals it to the world. Atma is the main element for bliss in itself. The grandeur of Atma itself is the basis of enchantment and joyousness in self. The overjoyed man then offers the understanding from realization to the world. Even now, if we have a bountiful of something, we naturally want to share it with others. Realization is such a big bounty that man can't contain it to itself and starts expressing it to the world. I have seen, understood, and realized this. In the past, our elders kept proclaiming that realization is incommunicable. Now, who would you believe? Human being can communicate their realization if they so desire. I am its living evidence. Realization is followed by human beings producing evidences of realization in their living. Thus far, in the name of evidence, we have either been presented with scriptural evidence or instrumental evidence, right? That is Shastra Praman or Yantra Praman, right? So, scriptural evidence is something that all the uh, religion or the faiths actually talked about, and instrumental evidence is what the science and the people from the materialistic background talk about. There is no proof of human beings having evidence truth thus far. So he's saying that can the human being, the living and breathing human being, are looking up to some book for referring to in terms of what the truth is, or we are looking at some instrument to actually see whether what is the right or wrong, or we actually believe in human being, we can trust in the human being that what the human being is saying is correct. Okay, so being that is the is the saying is being said here, that there is no proof of human beings having evidence truth thus far. Instrumental evidence is changeable, and scientists themselves say that their discoveries are not to be taken as the final truth. Now it has become a big challenge to decide what is first truth, middle truth, final truth, near truth, distant truth. There is truth and there is untruth. Untruth means human beings living in delusion. There is no reality in existence by the name untruth. Who would call we could call our wrong understanding or and our delusion as untruth. Truth is existence itself, all that is, which neither increases nor decreases. There is no such thing as first truth or last truth. Truth has continuity. Human being can be in the state of not having understood truth. It is with right understanding that truth gets understood. Understanding coexistence itself is the ultimate truth. Let me see how far we are with what we had thought we will complete today. Actually, today we are going a little slow. I had thought that we will actually be able to do till page number 101 of the book in Hindi. I think we will continue for 10 more minutes, and then the remaining thing we will actually do it next week. Okay. The result of understanding of existence is in acceptance that existence is orderly. Okay, so result of once you have understood that result understood existence, then it leads to an acceptance in oneself that existence is orderly. Since existence itself is in the form of orderliness, it is natural for human being to have inherent tendency for becoming orderly, right? So he's saying that the human being has a natural tendency, inherent natural tendency to become orderly, because existence itself is an order in the state of orderliness. So therefore the human being also has the natural inclination to be orderly. Therefore, we find that dharma of all human being is only one, that is living in the orderliness of existence. So again, that dharma is actually identified as the living in the orderliness or the vyavastha of existence. The meaning of human beings' dharma is only in the form of their orderly living. Trust in the ever presence of existence itself is happiness. There is no evidence of anyone having found happiness from the path of devotion detachment. Samadhi is the state of total detachment, which is culmination of sadhana. It is impossible to say whether one is happy or one is miserable in that state. It is not possible for one to testify that state, and that is why it is said to be beyond happiness or misery. If you attain samadhi yourself, you too will discover the same. Samadhi is bereft of thoughts. I have seen that state myself. Samadhi is a possible event for human being, but it is not a definite event. It is not possible to foretell who will achieve samadhi and when. It is not possible to say how one can achieve samadhi, since there are many methods for it: sadhana vidhi, agantuk vidhi, yog vidhi, dhyan vidhi, tap vidhi, jap vidhi, etc. So, right, so there are many paths to achieving the state of samadhi, and he says that samadhi, it is not there is no question of being happy or being miserable, right? This is the state that is beyond the state of happiness uh, uh, or misery. So samadhi is not the state of resolution at all, right? So resolution, he says that happiness, definition of resolution, happiness is resolution, and samadhi is not the state of resolution, is being said over here, right? Samadhi is actually bereft of thoughts. There are no thoughts in the state of samadhi, while resolution actually has thoughts, right? It is the resolved thoughts that one has, and there is action there in the samadhi, right? In the samadhan, while in the samadhi there is no action, right? There is no outward action, right? As we start living in the orderliness of existence, we become its participant. It is only by way of benefaction or upkar that we become able to impart Siksha Sanskar or education. Shiksha Sanskar has no meaning if it is done in expectation of some return. Understanding of truth and reality cannot be imparted in expectation of some return. I impart Shiksha Sanskar by way of benefaction or upkar. It never occurred to me to expect anything in return for my teaching. Material things are not needed for imparting the right understanding. The teachers who impart education need to be self reliant and self sustaining in occupation. The one who is wise will necessarily be self reliant, will do some production, will be capable, and will perform the acts of benefaction. It can be surveyed that every human being has the inherent tendency of helping others. It is the ground for developing the capability of performing the acts of benefaction. If we were to nurture a child's helping tendency, it will develop into the capability of benefaction by the time they become adult. We only need to provision in education the way to nurture and guide this source that is present in every child. This can only be done through humanistic education. Professional or industrial education will not be able to do it. If this is brought into focus, it is possible to develop education that addresses behavior, orderliness, and evidence. Human being needs to be the basis of evidence. Professional and industrial education cannot make the human being social. Whether or not such education will result in wrongs and crime with humankind, it would definitely result in human wrongs and crimes with the earth. Professional and industrial education alone have led to the ruination of earth. Therefore, we need humanistic education, behavioral education, resolutionistic education, and evidential education as their alternative. Such an education shall be built by keeping the humane conduct at the center. We need to develop entire educational content for making human being wise and ensuring humane conduct. So we'll stop here today. Think um, we have not covered all the pages that we wanted to do, but we can do that next week. And next week, actually, it will be presented by uh, Nivita Didi from Manavdeep. So she will actually start from the point where I am finishing today. I hope that you found this presentation of some use, and I'll share the text of what I had presented here to with you in the Madhyas Darshan English channel group. Thank you very much for joining in, and namaste.